Hello, welcome to lesson number 3 in the unit on the Srivijaya kingdom. In this lesson we're going to be learning about architecture and urban planning. Now you have to keep in mind that the Srivijaya kingdom was very vast. It covered a great geographic range, including land on the Malaysian peninsula, the island of Sumatra, as well as parts of the island of Java. So you can imagine that the architecture in different places and in different city-states and small kingdoms that were controlled by Srivijaya may have been quite different depending on the historic influences on their architecture that they may have had, as well as the resources that were available in the area. Okay, and go into a little more detail about that throughout this lesson. Okay. Cities throughout the kingdom were mainly found near rivers. Large cities were found near rivers and not too far from the ocean, so they had easy access for trade. Some cities did have canal systems for transportation, much like Funan, and they had moats for protection. Okay. And these cities probably had city walls. Now we say probably because some of these walls actually, or rather none of these walls on the island of Sumatra at least exist anymore. And we'll talk about why that is in a moment. Okay, so Palembang, of course, located on the island of Sumatra, had buildings made from mostly wood. Right, almost entirely the buildings were made from wood. We have not found any archaeological evidence of stone or brick buildings left behind. So those buildings would have been built from wood, and because they were built over 1,000 years ago, that wood today has already rotted away and there's no sign of it left for archaeologists to dig up or discover. So we don't know a whole lot about the architecture of Palembang or other Srivijayan cities on the island of Sumatra. Okay. But historians do believe that most people would have lived in rafts on the river in the city of Palembang. Okay, meaning they would have had floating houses or lived on boats. Rich people and royalty would have lived on the land and maybe on small islands in the river. All right. Palembang was a good location because it had access to forest products from central Sumatra. Okay, so they could send ships up the river to these small communities that existed in the forest, and they could get their products from there and bring it back to Palembang where they could trade them. This was a sheltered location. It was several kilometers from the ocean, okay, in the Strait of Malacca. And so it had shelter from storms if perhaps if the ocean got too rough. At least the ships that were docked in Palembang would have been safe, okay, because it was several kilometers upstream from the ocean. All right. As I said, most buildings, if not all buildings, in Palembang were made from wood. You might ask, why is that? Why were they made from wood, not from stone, not from brick? It's because because of the resources that were available. Okay, there was a lot of wood available. There wasn't so much stone to make buildings out of, essentially. Okay. However, in other parts of the kingdom, they did have those resources. So in other parts of the kingdom, there were buildings made from brick and stone, as we will see. Okay, if you look right here, we've got a very beautiful jetty, which can be found today in the Thai province of Surat Thani, right, in the town of Chaya. It's an absolutely beautiful jetty. As you can see, it has some influences from Varavati in the sense that it is a square-shaped jetty for the most part, and it does have layers. and each layer gets smaller as we go up. However, it also has influences from Javanese architecture. These small chetties you see on each layer, okay, that comes from architecture from the island of Java. So you can imagine that even as far away as Chaya and Surat Thani, they still had some sort of connection with the people from Java, which the island of Java, of course, is much further south. All right. So this particular chetty, if we're going to talk about the architectural features of it, it does have 4 corners, so it's square shaped, multiple layers, each layer getting smaller as we go up, much like the chetties from the Varavati civilization. And as I said, it has smaller chetties on each layer, the Javanese influence here, and it is covered in plaster or stucco, okay, although the chetty itself is made from brick. Okay, and it has some designs on it, although these designs that you see right here were added later during the Ratanakosin period. Okay, so much later actually. But of course at the time it would have had some designs and artistic features as well. At the time, meaning at the time of the Srivijaya Empire. Alright, here's another structure also found in Chaya. Of course it's not as well preserved as the chetty I just showed you, but it is another chetty or religious structure. And this one, of course, as you can see, made from brick. It does have a Buddha image inside. Alright, and this in the past, of course, would have been much taller, would have been covered in plaster or stucco and painted. Alright, much like the other chetty I just showed you, but the reason I show you this is because I want you to see that this building is made from brick. This building, although you can't see the bricks, this building is also made from brick, just covered in plaster or stucco. Alright, so as I said, other buildings, other forms of architecture in different places had different features. Alright, so those buildings further north in the Srivijaya kingdom, in Chaya, Tamraling, probably in Lankasuka, or definitely in Lankasuka, would have been made from brick. Okay, and in fact we do have some archaeological evidence of brick buildings from Lankasuka period. Alright. My next slide doesn't want to load. I'll just go down one here. Alright. Here's another example of a more well-preserved brick temple from the Srivijaya period. Again, this one has slightly different details, but of course it still has that square base, which was likely influenced by the Varavati people. Okay, but it has a different shape on the top here, more of a cylindrical shape, or cylinder shape. Okay. So the main takeaway I want you to get from this is that throughout the kingdom we had many different archaeological features, okay, depending on what resources were available, okay, and depending on the influences. Okay. As I said, kingdoms like Lankasuka, Tamraling, Chaya, although Chaya may have at some point been part of the Tamraling kingdom, these old kingdoms on the peninsula, or rather on the Malay peninsula, would have had some Varavati influence, whereas the buildings that existed in Palembang probably did not. So you can imagine that there was a wide variety of architecture throughout the entire kingdom. Okay. That's it for this lesson, so thank you very much for listening.